Thank you, friends. Shabbat Shalom. I am thrilled that so many of you were excited by the Keep the Memory Alive project, a dissemination of the talasim, or symbols of spirit of a house of worship. It's a great thing to do, and thank you for your support and for keeping the memory of this institution going. Now, a lot of people really connected with last week. I guess it is the rock and roll in them. And don't we all feel a little Rolling Stone at times? And I know Ellen had a hot birthday, and that's great, and I will say no more. I want to take a moment to have us all join and send our healing wishes and condolences to Joseph Vital. His father Herman is in the hospital, so let us say a Mishnah Baruch for him. May the one who blessed all who came before us bless those in need of healing. And his mother Ita, who passed away just 2 weeks ago, a marvelous woman and mother, born in June of 1928, and although she lived a good life, it is never easy to say goodbye, nor are we ever fully prepared. Tahei nafsho atzura b'tzror chachaim. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. Friends, we talked last week how some parshas just naturally go together. And for those who have read this week's, and for those who will, when we finish this parsha, you will see why this and the last go together so well. As I said, we have left the family of man for a man's family. And with it we get stories of jealousy, anger, resentment, deception, fear, incest, human sacrifice, and lying. And yet we also get love, hospitality, obedience, self-sacrifice, sharing, and caring. Pretty well a cornucopia of human emotions. But watch, friends, because the unifying ones are shown to us as being fear-driven. And I have always had great difficulty with an emphasis on fear. We also have two of the most interesting Bible stories presented. One, which kind of warns against evil and vice and lasciviousness, and one which almost everyone reads every year, and which demonstrates the ultimate in godly obedience, and we are witness to the implementation of the official Abrahamic covenant, the enunciation of which we will see is organized in three distinct units. First, the promise of progeny and land. Then the commandment of circumcision as a sign of the covenant. Then the promise of Sarah's maternity. And even though we have left the cosmic for the more mundane, we have a treasure trove of angelic visitations and predictions. We were introduced to angels last week, friends, when an angel found Hagar wandering. And we are about to be inundated by them. This becomes a parsha of angels, and the largest concentration of angelic stories first hinted at in the glossed over Genesis 6 in the entire Torah. Vayera, and he appeared, the he being either God or an angel. Both are mentioned. Or to put it more simply, the Lord's messenger. With Hagar last week we had our first occurrence of an angel. In Hebrew it is malach, and in Greek angelos. Although the sons of God, the members of the divine entourage, were briefly mentioned in chapter 6, the biblical world understood messenger, or one who carries out a designated task, as the primary meaning of the Hebrew term. We see it a little differently because of our preconceived notions and illusions of truth about angels. Some commentators have proposed that the angel as intermediary was superimposed on the earliest biblical tradition in order to mitigate what may have seemed like an excessively anthropomorphic representation of the deity. I personally happen to accept angels and messengers, and have no problem with anyone saying they have seen and or spoken with such messengers. I know I certainly have. Statistics show most people believe in angels of some kind. It may just be the person who helps you out or the stranger on the train. Sometimes it is the parking angel who gives you that hard-to-find parking spot. The angels in this parsha, who come to Abraham and Sarah regarding Sarah's childbearing, and who come to Lot regarding Sodom and Gomorrah, come as men. The angel who calls to Abraham during the Akedah is not seen, nor was Hagar's in the last parsha. And as I said, an angel is a messenger of God. We meet them all the time. And isn't it strange that we can say to people we met an angel, but we cannot tell people we got a message from God? We accept that we can be in the presence of a messenger, but perhaps we do not believe we are worthy of being in the presence of the divine sender. I do not know. What I do know is you are not only worthy enough, but you hear from him or her all the time. You just have to listen. You, angel, you. You got me under your wing, the way you walk and the way you talk. I swear it makes me sing. Look at the amazing things we learn about angels from movies, TV, and songs, and we have no problem with it. Who doesn't remember that incredible revelation in It's a Wonderful Life that every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings? We grew up with songs about teen angels. We named ball clubs after them. We all wish we had an angel in our pocket or on our shoulder. And of course, the great Paul McCartney tribute to his mother is an angel. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me speaking words of wisdom. Let it be. But we learned much more in this parsha than about angels. We learn tremendous human traits. The great lesson in hospitality comes from this parsha. Genesis 18:1, Abraham's sitting at his tent entrance. He looks up and he sees 3 people standing over him. Now, when you read this, friends, you might notice lots of inconsistencies. This parsha was probably an edited version of a much more complete pair of stories. You see, we are told he runs to them. But of course, if they are standing over him, he would not have to. He prostrates himself and addresses them in the singular. And there's a lot of switching between the singular and the plural. We are confused. You see, we know we will be told that no man sees God's face and lives, and that the heavens cannot contain God. So did we use angels as the vehicle to see and talk with God? Don't get bogged down in that. Enjoy the story and the lessons for what they present. We are taught to be hospitable, cordial, and open. The 3 visitors are heavenly messengers. And of course, there are other famous traditions where 3 visitors come. They are not referred to necessarily as angels, but their role is the same. We then have an angel tell them that Sarah will have a son. And they said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "Here, in the tent." And he said, "I shall come back to you at the time of life, and here's Sarah, your wife, will have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent entrance, and Sarah laughed. Friends, this is an annunciation scene. And they work in a sequence like this. There is the fact of barrenness. There's the promise of a son by God or angel or holy man. And there is the fulfillment of the promise in conception and birth. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen it, but the Leonardo da Vinci painting of the Annunciation housed in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence is otherworldly, as we see the Archangel Gabriel sent by God announcing to Mary that she would miraculously give birth to a son. You see, for people who knew all too well and fully accepted the Sarah story, this would not be out of the ordinary. And friends, you might note a few things in this exchange. The angels are eating, something God never did. For references to God, it is always the aroma was pleasing, not the taste. And there continues to be shifting to the singular, he, from them. Now Sarah laughed because she was too old. And yet a few years earlier, Abraham said the Egyptians would kill for her. And we will see an incredible replay of that shortly. But first the angels and God separate as the angels go off to Sodom and Abraham starts bargaining with God. You want to talk to me? Go ahead and talk. Whatever you got to say to me won't come as any shock. It's a fascinating exchange as they barter for the life of man. They settle on no destruction if 10 decent people can be found. But we belong to the creatures with evil in their heart from youth. So what are the odds? We then switch to one of the strangest episodes ever. They just don't write stuff like this anymore. I suspect almost everyone has heard about Sodom and Gomorrah. It would probably rank in the top 5 or 10 of Bible stories for people. And not necessarily because they actually know the whole story. They just know the name and a little about it. The angels come and talk to Lot, and the townspeople gather around them. And they say in Genesis 19:05, "Let us know them." They are threatening sexual abuse of the guests. And what does Lot do? He offers his daughters instead. Is this what a parent does? I have 2 daughters who have known no man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them whatever you want. Wow! I was always stunned by this shocking offer. I know we're supposed to take the lesson of being hospitable from Abraham, but this is a little extreme. The angels strike the townspeople with blindness. And they tell Lot to leave because they are there to destroy the city. Now, I wondered why God had settled with Abraham on 10 people. And I wondered if the Lot family would make the 10. We had Lot, his wife, and 2 virgin daughters. That's 4. And he had other married daughters. Now, if only 2 other daughters, that would give, with their husbands, 8 people. But if it was 3 other daughters and their husbands, it gives 10, and would have fulfilled the 10-person requirement. But his sons-in-law laughed and paid no heed when he warned them. Regardless, the 10 were not found, and Lot was told to flee as he and his family is whisked outside, and they are told not to look back. And Yahweh rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and on Gomorrah. Friends, this is a parallel description to the flood. Except God promised there never to wipe out man with rain again. God knows it's a struggle. God knows it's a crime. God knows there's going to be no more water, but fire next time. Lot's wife looks behind and becomes a pillar of salt. Don't lead your lives looking backwards, friends. Look to your future. And our sages who introduced washing before a meal to be like the priests who underwent purification rituals before eating to keep a sense of holiness for the food, also introduced the practice of washing after a meal to allow us to wash away the salt of Sodom, which can blind us with sensual pleasures. And no matter how spiritual you are, my friends, there is an element of sensuality in every meal, as well there should be. And the flood story parallel continues. Lot's daughters get him drunk like Noah and have sex with him. Both girls get pregnant, and the concluding chapter of this bizarre episode acts as a karmic fulfillment of his outrageous earlier offer. Wow! You need a rest after reading just to hear. And now we get to continue with Abraham in the strange replay of the She's My Sister episode, which occurs with Abimelech, who was believed to be a Philistine king. And the only reason it's worth mentioning is not because it is identical to the previous She's My Sister episode, but for 3 other reasons. We are given the first recorded dream in the Bible. And in it, God tells Abimelech that Abraham is a prophet. And this, my friends, is the only time he's called that and the only occurrence of the word in the book of Genesis. And finally, it is in this episode in Genesis 20:12 we have the familial confession that she is indeed his sister. In point of fact, she is my sister, my father's daughter, though not my mother's daughter. And she became my wife. And he speaks as someone whose words have the ring of a speaker floundering for self-justification. A fascinating story, simply fascinating. Now, as promised, Isaac is born and circumcised on day 8. And this marks the first time circumcision is done according to the covenant. Abraham was 99 and Ishmael 13. And historically, circumcision was not depicted as an infant thing. And remember, this will change in Deuteronomy with the concept of circumcision of the heart, the organ of understanding and emotion, and a pathway to God for both men and women. We've only just begun. Get ready, folks. We're about to embark on the second of the Sarah Hagar episodes, sparked by jealousy and fear. And Hagar has to be the most famous maid in history. And I'll use this opportunity to throw a little Stephen Sondheim in. Everybody ought to have a maid, someone who you hire when you're short of help to offer you the sort of help you never get from a spouse. And because she provided that sort of help earlier, Sarah does not like Hagar or Ishmael and wants them driven out. And Abraham didn't want to, but God tells him to do what his wife said, which reminds me of that old saying, happy wife, happy life, or something like that. Friends, these are the High Holy Day readings, read every year by people who go to synagogue but once a year. Hagar and Ishmael are sent away and an angel calls out to her. And then God himself tells her he will make Ishmael a great nation. The Ishmaelites, who are famous for taking Joseph to Egypt and actually never heard from again in the Torah. And Hagar, according to Rashi, possibly becomes the second wife of Abraham, Keturah, the most ignored, significant person in the Torah. Friends, we are now at the other High Holy Day reading, and probably the defining Torah story in Judaism before the Great Epiphany at Sinai, the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. And what many refer to as the final test of Abraham. According to lore, God tested Abraham with 10 tests, kind of like Hercules' trials. And we have the first use of the double name-calling formula, Abraham, Abraham. Although the Masoretic text, the one we follow, has only one Abraham, the others have two. And we know this is a life-altering formula. We see it with Jacob, with the dream and the angel wrestling episode, and Moses at the burning bush. And we will see it shortly in verse 11 when it is used to stop the sacrifice. God says to Abraham, "Kill me a son." Abe said, "Man, you must be putting me on." There's a fantastic classical midrash, my friends, which was followed by Rashi, which reported the intercourse between God and Abraham as an actual conversation. Now here's how it reads in Genesis 22:2. "Take, pray, your son, your only one, whom you love, Isaac, and go forth to the land of Moriah, and offer him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I shall say to you." And here's how it was suggested it might have gone. "Take, pray your son." He said to him, "I have two sons." He, meaning God, said to him, "Your only one." He said, "This one is an only one to his mother, and this one is an only one to his mother." He said to him, "Whom you love?" He said to him, "I love both of them." He said to him, "Isaac." I love the options you have, my friends. The Torah is an organic book, and a book of interpretation and nuance. It has no vowels, no punctuation, no direction. And as the instructions continue, and you read the exchange between father and son regarding the sacrifice, you can hear the options in your mind. Was it a touching endearment? God will see to the sheep for the burnt offering, my son. Or fearfully ironic as he points out the sacrifice will be his son. God will see to the sheep for the burnt offering, my son. Same sentence, two completely different meanings. And as we saw last week, was a series of foretelling incidents as Abraham sets off on his ass with his two boys. We have a beautiful foretelling of the Balaam scene, the great comic section of the Torah, who sets off on his ass with his two boys. What a great parallel. And what a parallel for Abraham's two sons, each threatened with death in the wilderness, each saved by an angel. The Parsha technically ends with a minor genealogy, but really ends, "And Abraham went back to his boys, and they got up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham lived in Beersheba." There's no mention of Isaac returning, and Isaac and Abraham are never quoted as speaking to each other again. And there is a Midrash in scholarship that suggests that perhaps the sacrifice did take place. Abraham is a study in contrast. He fought for the lives of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, but not for Isaac. Why? Why are these two stories put together? Is he simply obedient? He played no active role in Sodom and Gomorrah and argued, but everywhere where he is active, he blindly obeys. "Leave your home and go, cat, go to a place I'll say to you." And he goes. "Circumcise yourself, Ishmael, and your whole retinue." And he does. "Listen to Sarah." And he sends Hagar away. "Take your son to a mountain, I'll say to you." And he does. In each of these instances, there are no arguments. There are no questions. Some have suggested that Abraham learns that since God knows what's in one's heart, why argue? Since God knows the situation and its necessary outcome, why speak? After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham never argues with God again. And friends, as this defining moment in Judaism occurs and Abraham's hand is stayed, the Lord says, "Now I know that you fear God, and you didn't withhold your son, your only one, from me." Why is fear, not love, the key? In further Isaac stories, God will be referred to as the terror of Isaac. Gee, I wonder why. Friends, why fear? Fear becomes the defining emotion throughout the patriarch stories and the thing that imprisons man, that shatters families and siblings, and is still the great thief of time. Give me love, give me love, give me peace on earth. We take the great cordiality in welcoming of strangers, the blind obedience to God, and faith in His Word as the great lessons of Abraham. And God takes fear. So instead of fear, what if instead God focused on love? Would we view the Creator any differently? Fear, my friends, is the breeding ground of anger and hurt. If you want the world to know we won't let hatred grow, put a little love in your heart. I love doing these commentaries for you, so even if just one of you wants me to continue, I will. Thank you, friends. If you have any questions or comments, I remind you, please send them in. In the meantime, be well, be happy, be healthy, be in love. Blessings to you all. See you soon. Shabbat Shalom.